Welcome to round 5 of the Abstrakt Sales Academy. I'm Ben Newman and you know I am fired up, and today I am going to dive right in. Why? Because there's some fire and extra passion that's on my heart and I want to give it to you. Because I know what happens when people are fighting to get to that next level of greatness. No matter what success you've achieved, when you dig down deep and you're going to that next level, I know what happens. Sometimes we take a look at our environment and we start to question, and am I in the right place? Is this the right time? With what I have around me, can I get to the next level? And we start to question our belief. Keep believing in you. I wanted to start with a story about belief and vision and the hard work that it takes over long periods of time to be successful. You know, every month you're going to hear me talk about the Prize Fighter Day over and over, because that's about your daily disciplines, your why, your purpose to drive behavior. So I want to talk to you about a story that embraces purpose and why and vision. And it takes us back 16 years ago to a man in Springfield, Missouri, who had this big vision that he was going to create a supplement store that would revolutionize how people thought about nutrition and supplements. So imagine this. You got your first store. And the store, it's nothing to write home about. It's kind of like a box. Just think of it like a box. This is not Class A space. And on the outside of this box, here's your door. And then right on the outside of the door, you've got your little open sign, right? And think of like an old, rickety open sign. You didn't even have the money to buy the right open sign. So it's the open sign. On the other side, it says close. And then there's a little string that comes down. It's barely even hanging. So let's just get that image in our heads. Nothing beautiful. And you start stacking your shelves in the store with product. And you get excited. Why? Because you've cast this vision of how incredible this business is going to go. And you get to day one. That sign goes from closed, you flip it over, it says open, and you are excited and you're ready for business. Day one, you get to the end of the day, you look at the cash register. It didn't take long for you to see. You sold $7 of product. $7. What would you do? How would you respond? How many people, and it's me being direct here with you, but how many people at that point in time say, that's it. Maybe this just wasn't right. Maybe the community's not right for what the company is. I mean, we did the marketing. People know we're open. Nobody even came into the store. We sold $7. It was nothing. How many people would give up after day one? That's not you. You're sitting where you are right now because you're a fighter. You believe in you. He didn't give up either. He goes to day 2, $0 of sales. Now come on. Now you start questioning. Is the environment right? Right? What's going on here? Has that ever happened to you in your business? Do you ever, and nobody raise hands in your conference room, or if you're watching this by yourself, I'm not calling anybody out. But do you ever make excuses? Oh, the world's against me, or this isn't going my way. Or do you keep fighting? Do you keep believing? I know you've got that belief in yourself. He goes to day 3, $0 in sales. Day 4, $21, big day. Now you're averaging $7 a day. Now let me tell you something about his champion mindset. He wasn't thinking about averages. He wasn't thinking about the fact that nothing was going off the shelves. He stayed focused on his belief, his why, his purpose, and it continued to drive his behaviors. Speed forward. Years 8 through 12, because he kept the business open and he kept fighting. Years 8 through 12, his income after expenses were paid, he was paying himself about $40,000 a year. 12 years in. A far cry of what the vision and dream showed of what was possible for him in this business. Yet where is he today? 16 years in? $100 million of sales. $100 million. Because he never gave up. and he believed. His why was so significant. See, he surrendered to a purpose that was bigger than him because it wasn't about making millions of dollars. It wasn't about just selling products. It was about taking his heart, giving it away, pouring into other people, giving people careers. And now he uses his company, First Form, one of the national leaders in nutrition, supplements. First Form, go check him out. His name is Andy Frisella. Go check him out on Instagram. Follow him. He's got great messages. He's got fire to keep you motivated. Andy Frisella, at Andy Frisella, F-R-I-S-E-L-L-A. You're going to thank me for that one. Because he's giving it away. He now uses the success as a platform to continue to grow others. Because he believes in bringing out the best in you. And no matter what your environment currently says, just like for him 16 years ago, the environment's saying, yeah, good luck with your business, $7 in sales. He stayed true to the vision. He kept doing the work. And the why and the purpose was significant enough that it was driving his behavior to now have the success that he enjoys and to have the platform that he uses to pour into others for them to be their best. So maybe the environment, maybe the world is saying it's not your time. I'm telling you right now, dig down deep because everything you need is already in you. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, I thought round 5 was about telephoning and loving the phone. I'm looking at our handouts. I'm looking at this like, what does this have to do with phoning? Everything. See, because if I don't connect you to your fire and your passion, your conviction, the reason why you want to pick up the phone, no matter what I share with you about phoning, it literally does not matter. In order to love the phone, I have to help you connect to the reason why you want to pick up the telephone. Now, I don't say this to impress you. I say it to impress upon the point. I've been in sales over 20 years. If we just take the 11 years that I spent in the insurance and investment world, literally for a Fortune 100 financial firm, selling life insurance. I know you don't want to talk about life insurance, and you're saying, thank goodness this guy doesn't sell life insurance anymore, right? Totally kidding. But when people think of life insurance, they say, boy, that's tough. And you know what? You're right. Life insurance professionals are some of the most courageous salespeople who have ever walked the face of the earth. It's tough stuff. I sold millions of dollars of life insurance, millions of dollars of life insurance, because I knew the reason why I wanted to pick up the phone every single day. The reason why was, if you remember my story, watching my mother die from amyloidosis 11 days before my 8th birthday, her last year living 24-hour nursing care in our home, and then $100,000 of life insurance funded my college education. You think I knew my why? My why was all based around continuing to write the story that my mother had written for me, selling life insurance to help the little boys just like me have their stories continue like my mom did for me. I just wanted to do that for other people. And then my why was connected to my mother's legacy. That drove me to pick up the telephone. Andy Frisella was driven by his why to have that platform to serve and to give his God-given talents to pour into other people. So what's your why? What's the reason why you're going to pick up that phone? Because that's what will lead to your greatness. And even if you've achieved great things in your business, when you have those tough days, remember that at any point in time, be it a professional athlete that I work with, a business professional, through tough times, you always have the ability and the choice to reconnect to that ideal state of focus, or to go back to that why, to reframe, to stay focused on the solutions, the positive action steps that will keep you on a path to being successful. But you have to choose to connect to the why when times are tough. You want to love the telephone? On those tough days, the adversity, the no's that you hear, go back to the why. It'll cause you to pick up that telephone. Now, before I dive into some of the fun, the psychology, the use of words, a couple tricks of the trade that I'm going to share with you to help you with your phoning, and then I'm going to give you an unbelievable prospecting technique to get you right into the markets that you want to work in, and then I'm going to leave you with a final success story about greatness to just connect you to getting after it. I want to share with you the importance of you just being you. That's one of the keys to the phone. When I started with Evanston Paper Company, before I was with Northwestern Mutual, I had Floyd, he was the owner of the company. He's like, man, when you're on the telephone, just be you. Just smile, have a good time. People can feel your energy through the phone. So that's all I ever wanted to do. I wanted to be me on the phone. I wanted to connect to my why, the reason why I was going to get on the phone, and then just be myself. And you don't have to be perfect. I actually remember a time, this was probably 10 years ago, and I was sitting in a parking lot of a Mexican restaurant. And there was this dentist that I had been chasing. I mean chasing. It was probably going on for a year. This was one of those prospects. Maybe you've had a prospect like this. The prospect, like I'm getting referrals from his friends and like multiple people. You got to call this guy. You got to call this guy. You got to call this guy. He wants to talk to you. So I'm like excited every time I'm calling the phone. Never talk to him. I'm leaving voicemails. Never getting a return phone call. So here I am one afternoon. I'm sitting in the parking lot of this Mexican restaurant. And I'm talking to a friend named Chris, another colleague. And all of a sudden I hear the phone and I look down and there's a call coming in. It was the dentist. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my goodness, the dentist is finally calling back. So I put the phone back up to my ear and I say, Chris, hold on one second. It's this dentist. Hold on, just hold on. So I click over and I say, hey, what's going on? And it happens to be the dentist. That's who it is. I said, hold on one second. I'm on the other line, but I'm going to get off. So I thought that I had hit the button to click back over to Chris, and I didn't. And I ended up saying, hey, Chris, you got to let me go, man. On the other line right now is this dentist I have been chasing like crazy for a year. And all of a sudden there was this long pause, and I hear, it's still the dentist. And I thought, oh my goodness. I said, can you hold on one second? I click back over to my friend Chris, and I'm like, dude, I'll explain this later, but I got to let you go. I click back over. Would you believe the dentist took the appointment with me? We went to dinner one night to talk with him and his wife about their planning. And the first thing out of his mouth, he's like joking with his wife about me. And can you believe this guy did this on the telephone? Speed forward all these years. I'm not even in the insurance business anymore. He's still my dentist and one of my closest friends. So what does that tell you? You don't have to be perfect on the telephone. You don't have to be perfect in any part of your sales process, but you have to be willing to do the work. You have to hang in there. And when things aren't perfect, just keep moving. He ended up being a really good client too. Don't be perfect. Connect to your why, pick up the phone, do the activity, and just keep moving. Now here's one of the things I used to do on the phone. When it came to phoning language, I wanted to make sure that I would communicate in such a way that I wasn't inviting objections. Think about this. Don't invite objections. So let's think of the phone for a second. Let's say if I'm calling Sarah, and I call Sarah and Sarah picks up the phone. Here's how my language would go. Sarah, this is Ben with XYZ Company. My name may not sound familiar to you at all, but I recently enjoyed working with Grant. Grant said some incredible things about you. He said amazing things about your story, and I'd love to hear more about your story. And it would be great to get together and see if there's anything I can do to help you. Now, let's unpack this language. Let's look at the psychology of this language. First and foremost, and I don't know what language you're using, but I'm going to share this with you because you'll probably be able to pick pieces of it that'll make a difference for you. And you might be able to completely tweak your language because my phoning ratios were always over 80%. First things first. How many of you, remember no show of hands, I'm not trying to embarrass, do you ever call somebody and Sarah picks up the phone and you say, hi Sarah, is it a good time to talk? My belief, if somebody picks up the phone, it's a heck of a good time to talk. If you picked it up, it's a good time to talk. Why ask that question? The moment I ask the question or you ask the question, Sarah, is it a good time to talk? Of course she's going to say, no, you caught me in the middle of something, but go ahead. Even if she says, but go ahead, you've started the call off in a negative light. Don't start with objections. If they picked up the phone, it's a good time to talk. Then if you think about the words that I said, hey Sarah, Ben Newman with XYZ Company. I know my name does not sound familiar to you at all. Or if you think there's a probability that Grant, the nominator, had actually mentioned that you might be calling, you can say, my name may not sound familiar to you, but I recently enjoyed working with Grant. So that's a polite way of saying you don't know who in the world I am, or maybe Grant didn't tell you I'd be calling. Because what many people do in sales is they call, first thing, is it a good time to talk? No. Did Grant tell you that I'd be calling? No. So now, is that the way you want to start your conversation? No, no. Let's get some yeses. Or let's have some positive energy as you're being yourself. So Sarah answers the phone. My name may not sound familiar to you. Grant and I recently enjoyed getting together and he told me all about you. So I've made the connection. She knows Grant, I know Grant, that's the mutual connection. Then you're complimenting them. Grant actually said some great things about you. So now she's starting to feel good. Deep breath, well, that was nice of Grant to say. Then sometimes I would also throw in, because people know it's a sales call, Grant nor I made any assumptions about your situation. So now you're being very polite. Grant doesn't think you need something. He just told me your story, wasn't making any assumptions, but thought it would be valuable for us to get together. It's all very peaceful. It's calm. It's inviting. And then you say, I'd love the opportunity to hear more of your story. It just so happens I work with companies just like yours all across the country. From what Grant said, it would be great to get together, grab lunch, hear that story, and see if there's anything I can do to help you. How does lunch next Thursday sound? The key to the language that I'm providing here, the context of it, we're removing objections. Remove objections as often as you possibly can, and it can be the difference to drive up your phoning ratios, to schedule more appointments, which is going to lead to more sales. The phone is so important. Put your energy into the phone, but pay attention to the words that you use. I can't stress this enough. Take some time and work on this. Maybe you record your own language and listen. Maybe you look at yourself in a mirror. What's the language that you're using? Are you currently asking questions that are leading to no's on the phone that are unnecessary? Are there unnecessary questions? Is it a good time to talk? You don't have to. Evaluate your current language and see if there's anything that can be stripped away. Your phoning language is oftentimes the first opportunity you have to make an impression on a future prospect, a future client. Make sure that the language is giving you the highest probability of being successful. Now, this actually leads us into an amazing prospecting idea for you. Now, before we get here, I have to just tell you a really fun story about phoning and the importance of just being yourself. Because what happens over time is that you're going to be out in the marketplace, doesn't matter, whatever it is that you sell, but you're going to see people that might be potential clients for you. So think about how crazy this is. This is all about courage, just taking action if you have an opportunity. Because many times you read an article, you think of something, and people choose to not take action. I'm saying be courageous and take action. So there was actually a sportscaster. To protect his identity today on the video, we'll just call him Derek. So Derek was a sportscaster on a major channel in St. Louis. And I had a friend of mine, Chris, that I worked with at Northwestern Mutual. This is going back about another 10 years. So at Northwestern Mutual, and Chris, I remember, runs into my office one day. And you think I have high energy? This guy's like bouncing off the walls. He's like, hey, Newman, what is going on, man? He says, I was just at this golf tournament, and I saw Derek from News Channel 5. He's like, you will not believe this. He says, Derek wears an Invicta watch. Now, this was a brand of watch, like a big oversized face watch that at that point in time, Chris wore one, I wore one, and he saw that Derek wore one. So he's like, can you believe it? Derek wears an Invicta watch, you wear one, I wear one. Isn't that crazy? He's like, it's pretty cool, isn't it? And he was looking, I'm thinking, well, yeah, I mean, it's cool, but you know what's really cool, Chris? Watch this. And he's like, watch what? And I said, I'm going to call him right now. And I said, I'm going to get a meeting with him. See, I always had the expectation, and I still have it, because I'm still selling. Whether it's a speaking engagement, whether it's coaching, whether it's somebody attending one of our boot camps in the Virgin Islands or in St. Louis, I'm still selling every day. But I have the expectation, we're going to get the result that we want, and if we don't get it, I'll deal with it then. So I'd have this high energy, this expectation. I had the same mindset with Derek. So check this out. I look up the phone number, I call, and I get voicemail. Now, how many of you right? You just hang up the phone. I was like, forget this. I've got an opportunity right here. So I said, hey, Derek. I said, this is Ben Newman with Northwestern Mutual. I know my name does not sound familiar to you at all, but you are not going to believe this. I know you wear an Invicta watch because my buddy Chris was at the Joe Buck golf tournament. He wears an Invicta watch. He saw yours. I wear an Invicta watch. We should all get together to see if there's anything we can do to help you. Let's go grab lunch next week. How does Wednesday sound? Now, I know what you're thinking. That is just crazy. But remember what I shared with you earlier. Be yourself. Give your energy. Just give that high energy away because it can be the difference. I wasn't trying to be somebody else. I was being myself. Would you believe several hours later I got a return phone call and Derek became a long-term client and a big client, a very big client. And it actually turned out that Derek's mom had been a client of Northwestern Mutual for over 40 years. So what does that tell you? He'd heard his mom talk about Northwestern Mutual all these years. He never called. See, it takes your action, your courage, our action in that situation. My courage to say, yeah, it's fun, kind of shenanigans, but it's fun. I'm going to call because of a watch, and it led to business. Be courageous, be creative, and make things happen. Sometimes it's the uniqueness that gets people's attention. So what happened over time, it was all these situations like this that led to a concept that we've created and we now share called the +1 concept. You're going to see a page in your handout for how to bridge the gap between friends and business. That's where this +1 concept all comes into play. There's going to be 3 different scenarios that you'll see in the handout, and you can also Google the plus, do the +1 concept, and my name, Ben Newman. If you do that, a whole web page is going to pop up on our website. It's going to have a video of me talking about the +1 concept, so the energy we have around this is going to remain. It's also going to have all of the language that you have in your handouts, so you can cut and paste it right off of the website. This is the language that'll get you in front of friends and family. This is the language, personal observation, like I had with Derek. If you read about somebody in a magazine, you want to get creative, you want to be unique, you can cut and paste it and go get those ideal prospects. Because sales is a numbers game. And I know right now you could probably tell me this is exactly who I want to get to every single day, and I'm waiting to get referred to them. Stop waiting. Go out and get them. Because the way that the world is today, social media is so big, but you can turn social media contacts into legitimate business prospects, and that's what the +1 concept will do for you. So imagine one time per day, you were to reach out to somebody in your ideal market and use the language I've already written for you to get in front of these individuals. What would happen in your business? Would it grow? I know it would grow. Because if you're challenging yourself to get in front of the right people, the results will be amazing. The individuals, the businesses you'll be in front of will be bigger businesses. It'll lead to bigger business for you. So how does this play out? Right? It all sounds easy, right? How does this actually play out? So let's give an example. What I like to do typically when I'm in front of audiences, because we do so much work in the sports world as well as the business world, is I always give the sports example. I always ask audiences, who would be the hardest college football coach in America to get in front of? Like, who would it be? Pick one. Who would be the most sought after, the toughest? Like, if we were to say that'd be the best prospect you could ever have, if you wanted just the top college football coach, who would it be? Hands down, everybody always says Nick Saban. Nick Saban. I mean, 80 to 90% of the time. Sometimes we might get an Urban Meyer, sometimes somebody else. Everybody always, the consensus, unanimous, almost unanimous, Nick Saban. So let's use Nick Saban as an example today because that's what everybody always says. How could you get in front of Nick Saban? Well, let's think about this. Be unique. Be creative. Because a guy like Nick Saban or the big companies you're thinking about right now, you have to be creative. You have to find a way to capture their attention, to be different than everybody else who's reaching out to those companies or reaching out to a Nick Saban. So let's think of Nick Saban's situation. You know, after Alabama won their last championship, college football championship, Nick Saban was interviewed. And in that interview, one of the reporters said to Nick Saban, "Hey, Nick, when are you going to start planning for next year?" And Saban kind of takes a pause and he says, "Tonight." And the reporter looks at him like, "Tonight? Well, Nick, you you just won the national championship. What do you mean tonight? And he says, no, tonight. He says, you see, I don't know if you understand me. When I do something, I do it better than anybody else. I get after it. I do it better than anybody. He said, you know, if I were a street sweeper, there would be a sign out in front of my house that says the best street sweeper in the world lives right here. So, what did I do with the information from that press conference? I said, I'm going after Nick Saban. I called a company, friends that I've known for years. Vinyl Images, an amazing company, great friends. If you ever need signs, it's a national company, go look them up. I'm going to plug them because they're that good. Check this out, what they did for me. I called Joe Duver at Vinyl Images, and I said, Joe, I need you to make a sign for me. I need it to be big, I need it to be orange, I need it to be obnoxious, I need it to be a street sign, it needs to be metal, I mean a street sign, and it has to say, the best street sweeper in the world lives right here. He's like, what are you doing, man? I said, I'm going to get in front of Nick Saban. He says, are you serious right now? I said, yes. I said, please make the sign for me. I'll come pick it up. So he makes the sign. He calls me, your sign's ready. I drive over to Vinyl Images. They had to make a homemade box for me because this sign was so big, it was so obnoxious. When you hear me telling the details, you think this would get Nick Saban's attention? A big, huge box showing up in his office? I think so. Inside of that box, I put a copy of one of my books, Own Your Success. And then I also put a letter. And the letter was a personal letter that actually made the world smaller between Nick and I. It connected Nick to the fact that I was at Michigan State University when he was the head coach at Michigan State University. It talked about how I admired his passion for the process, how he empowered his players to attack the process like you've heard me talk about. Put it all in the box, letter, book, sign, I ship it off. Month 1 goes by, never hear from Saban. 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. Football season's over at this point, so now I'm thinking, well, for sure, Saban is going to reach out now. The season's over. A few more months go by. I'm at a Cardinal Day game. I get home after the game, and I go to check our mailbox. I pull out the mail, and there's an envelope with a big red A. Nick Saban had written me back. Now, immediately in my mind, I thought to myself, probably a canned letter, right? It's a canned letter. Probably just says, hey, thanks so much for sending all the things that you sent to me. Wish you all the best, Nick. I open up this letter. It was a long, detailed letter. It talked about specifics of him going to the Georgia mountains to read my book. It talked about things that were in my book. It talked about his belief in leadership, developing players on and off the turf. And then down at the bottom of the letter, there was a P.S. It said, you'll be happy to know that your sign is hanging front and center in the Saban home recruiting office. You have the ability to get in front of anybody. Can you believe that Nick Saban now goes into his recruiting office at his house and he thinks of goofy old me? The high energy guy on your videos every month, he's thinking of me. Why? Because we made a conscious choice as a team to be creative, to be unique. If you're going to get in front of a big company, a big CEO, you have to be courageous. You have to make yourself unique. That's all we did. So now Nick Saban's read Own Your Success. He has a copy of Your Mental Toughness Playbook, which you all should have now. If you don't have it yet, you can get your free copy, the ebook version, at freeplaybook.net. So he has these books. We're actually in the queue to be a speaker for Alabama football. We've been working with Ginger Gilmore, the team mom. Ginger makes all the decisions on final speakers. But here's the moral of the story. I've done what I can do. You can't control results. All you can control is taking this +1 concept to connect yourself to friends, people you're already friends with, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and I've given you the language to forget about that awkward gap of it's a friend, but I want to talk about business. Go check it out. You now have the language where when you lead with business, the friends respect it and they will do business with you. You have the personal observation, just like the watch story. And if there's big people you want to get in front of like Nick Saban, now you have the language to do it. but all you can control is the action step. The only thing I could control was making the sign, sending the book, writing the letter, and shipping it off to Nick Saban. And if you focus on what you can control as part of that process, and you go after the prospects that you want to go after, you will drive more and more business in more significant markets. I know that you can, because I've seen it work in business for me over and over again. And individuals I've shared these concepts with have grown their businesses 10 times over. Get after it. Believe in yourself. Be courageous. When that why is big enough, you're courageous to follow through on the +1 concept will be there. However you've naturally prospected in your business, keep doing that as well. Because remember what I said, it's the +1 concept, 1 time per day. Telephoning, prospecting, being courageous, just go to the next level. Are you ready to go to the next level? What will your next championship look like? Think of Andy Frisella's story. Takes us back to round 1. You have to have vision. You have to have belief of where you want to go. Think about reframing, staying focused on solutions. On the days when you don't want to do it, when the sales aren't coming in, are you willing to keep fighting? Stay connected to your why. It will drive your daily behaviors. Love the telephone. Be energized. Be excited. Be yourself. When you're on the telephone, remember, you don't have to be perfect. Identify pieces of your language where you can improve. Don't give people an opportunity to give you objections. Make it positive and expect you'll get the appointment. If you don't, we'll deal with it later. And when it comes to prospecting, which is how we get the people to call, utilize the +1 concept. I know it can be the difference for you. Put all of this together. If you only had this round, this one round 5, I'm telling you right now, I know this. I'm not telling you something that I think. I know, because I've worked with people who are running $100 million companies, $50 million companies, people running books and sales that are hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of dollars of sales every single year. And what do? They drive, they attack the process. They go to their prize fighter day. They utilize these same concepts I've given you in this 40-minute period of time, this one session, this one round. They've used it, and it's made the difference. Love that telephone. But remember, you have to do the work. That's why I always reconnect back. I'm going to do it one more time. I know I said it in the beginning, but just one more time. Your prize fighter day. What are you doing personally, professionally, and in service to others to be the difference? Because when you follow through on the work that it takes to be a champion, one day, you'll wear that championship belt. You'll hoist that Lombardi trophy. You'll have the awards and recognition that'll go around your neck if those things are important to you. Or if you're driven by legacy, the story that you write will be that much more significant. But you have to put in the work. You have to be courageous. And when you're in sales, it all starts with that telephone. So if you want to be a champion, stay connected, have vision, and believe. Don't take my word for it. One more quick story of belief. My good buddy, Jesse Hard Work Hart. Jesse this year fought on the undercard of the Manny Pacquiao-Floyd Mayweather fight. I have the opportunity and blessing of working with Jesse, an individual whose seeds for greatness were planted by his father, who was a former professional boxer, who saw the great talents that lied in Jesse, who taught Jesse what hard work looked like as a child. Jesse painted that vision of being a champion. Every day his entire life, Jesse has made the conscious choice to follow through on the work that it takes to be a champion, even on the days when he didn't want to do it. He's got a beautiful little daughter, Halo. And on those days when he doesn't feel like throwing those extra punches, putting in those extra miles on the road, he thinks of Halo. He thinks of his why. He thinks of the city of Philadelphia that he loves so much, his purpose, his passion. It's so big, it's so significant, it's so much bigger than him that he chooses to not stop fighting. He's now 17-0. And he won 3 belts that night when he knocked out a tough fighter, another undefeated fighter, Mikey Jimenez out of Chicago. He now has 3 belts. He's one of the fighters that Bob Arum from Top Rank Boxing is most excited about today. One of the best pound-for-pound fighters. He's now a champion. Why? Because he saw it as a little boy. Because he believed in himself. I know that greatness lies inside of you. Being in sales is very hard, but you have a choice to continue to believe. You have a choice to stay focused on the process. You have a choice to love that telephone, to work on being better with that telephone, because the telephone will drive to the future of your business. Get after it, attack the process, surrender to that purpose that's bigger than you, and until I see you for the next round, continue to go do great things.